Having a conversation here this morning with Trisha Thein, the chief of the Decorah Police Department, and Winneshiek County Sheriff Dan Marx. And the issue that we are discussing is motorist passing stopped school buses. And we'll start with you, Sheriff Marx. How big of an issue has this become in our area?
Well, unfortunately, it's become a regular occurrence for us. We've seen an uptick in the amount of reports we've had given to our office this year. And I'll back up a little bit though and say that if it happens once, it's too many, especially if somebody gets hurt. These laws are put into place for a reason, and that's to protect kids. And when parents send their kids to school in the morning, they expect that these laws will be followed and their children will be safe on their commute to and from school.
And Trisha, I know from the outside looking in, perhaps this would be more of an issue in the rural areas with more bus traffic in the rural areas than the city, but is it an issue in the city as well?
It absolutely is. We have a lot of bus stops within the city, but our schools are located in the city. So our buses are navigating tight turns and they're navigating traffic themselves with maybe less ability to view oncoming traffic. We have to just all play a role in keeping our kids safe. It takes every single one of us. Our children are our most valuable asset, and we really need every licensed driver out there on that road that's motoring down our highways and byways to take a role in helping us keep those kids safe.
And Dan, what is the punishment if you get charged and convicted for passing a stopped school bus?
Well, it's a steep fine. I don't know the exact amount, short of looking it up, but it's several $100 fine for a first offense. And this is the one that probably gets people more than anything beyond the fine, is it's an automatic 30-day license revocation or suspension. You lose your license for 30 days. So that's the part that typically we find most people where it hits them the hardest. They need their driver's license to get their kids to and from school. They need to get to work. They need to run their errands, do the things that all of us in life need to do. And it makes it tremendously harder when you lose your driver's license. And then from there, in a second and subsequent offense, the fines continue to go up and the license revocations continue to get longer.
And Tricia, I know some of these offenses are being reported at least by school bus drivers. I'd imagine the challenge is, unless you see it as a law enforcement officer, it's difficult to ticket this. Is there a mechanism in place where school bus drivers can report this, or are they just in general reporting the concern of this happening way too often?
Well, interestingly enough, anybody can report it. So if you are in oncoming traffic or a vehicle behind a school bus and you see it, you can report it. However, technology plays a role in assisting law enforcement in every avenue of our job, and school bus armed safety violators are no exception to that rule. School buses are outfitted with cameras, and so they document the actual incident unfolding, which is really, really great evidence for us when it comes time to ticket offenders and for subsequent court proceedings.
And from a procedural standpoint, we've all seen the stop arm come out from the bus as it makes a stop. What is the law when the bus is slowing down and that arm is going out? I know we're probably getting deep into the weeds and probably to legalese here, but what is actually the law that must be abided by? Dan.
Okay,
or Trisha, whichever you prefer.
Well, as it says right across the back of every school bus, you cannot pass a school bus from the rear if any lights are flashing. And it not only is that a law that everybody should know, in case they forget it, it says it on the back of the school bus. From the front, you are allowed to reduce your speed to a slow speed and pass from the front of the bus if the ambers are on. But once the red lights and the stop arm come on, then obviously you're legally required to stop there as well. I always tell people, bottom line is, it's a big yellow school bus. You know what they're doing. You know the kind of cargo they're hauling. And if you see a school bus, always be prepared to slow, stop, and be looking for kids. So if the law says from the front, if the red lights aren't on and the stop arm's not out, that you can technically at a slow rate of speed go past it, I would recommend not doing that. You know, if especially if that school bus is at or very near a stop, just be prepared to stop. Give the kids an extra just give the kids any help that they can get to make sure they're safe. The bus drivers are doing the best they can to keep their kids safe, keep these students safe, but they have a lot to keep track of. They have to drive the bus, they have to look out for the kids, they have to watch for traffic. There's a lot that they have on their plate as well, so let's cut them a break.
And bottom line, this is something, Chief Thein, that shouldn't be happening, but is it happening more in the afternoon, in the morning, or is it kind of happening at all times?
I believe it's happening at all times, and it's not only in Decorah and in Winneshiek County. You can Google this type of violation throughout the state of Iowa, and many school districts are complaining that they've seen an increase in this type of violation this year more than in years past. And I believe that we all just get very distracted. We are busy. We have a lot of, we want to get here, we got to get there, and we have our cell phones, and we have our kids, and we have our radio. We just need to slow down and pay attention and be in the moment. When you're operating that road or that vehicle on the roadway, you have to be present and in the moment and cautious. And we have to remember, this really isn't a new law. I mean, I would really start to pay some serious attention to this in 2012 after an incident in which a 7-year-old lost her life trying to board a bus to go to school. This is not risky behavior, boarding a bus to go to school. It's the drivers around that school bus that present that risk. And we just really, again, all need to work together to reduce that risk for all of our students.
And we all get caught, Sheriff Marx, of being impatient, and maybe you're running behind. Maybe the kids were a little slow in getting ready this morning. Something wasn't available to pack their lunch, etc. Whatever the reason, if you get to work at 8:15 instead of 8:13, I think all of us need to do a better job of taking that deep breath and saying, you know what, life will go on and we'll get to work, right?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to all of us. If we all do that gut check and just take a minute and think to ourselves, what that would do to our lives, how would we feel about ourselves? And that's all from a selfish point of view. That doesn't even get into what will it do to the lives of a family if we hurt, injure, or even worse, kill a child on our way to work, or whatever we thought was whatever we got tunnel visioned on and thought we had to get to at that moment. Stop and look at the big picture. Stop and think how terrible of a situation that would be, and how would we ever cope even moving on if we found ourselves in a situation where we were at fault for a negligent action around a school bus that could have been so easily prevented if we just stopped and thought about the reality of the situation. That, as you said, Darren, is that 2 minutes that big of a deal? And maybe maybe it's a situation where they're gonna get chewed out by their boss or their supervisor when they get to work. I think most of us would take that chewing versus hurting a child. I think let's keep in perspective what's important.
And I think you brought up a great point, Chief Thein, that the bottom line is the distracted driving issue perhaps creates this situation more than it has in years past. And I think it's probably a good thing to be reminded all the stuff that does distract us while we're behind the wheel, especially those hours between 7 and 8:30 in the morning and between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. We just got to be more cognizant of focusing on what we need to do, keep ourselves safe behind the wheel and our passengers and those around us as well.
I agree. And I think that we have to remember, as the weather continues to get warmer and we have spring approaching and then ultimately summer, that we just always need to be mindful of kids in the street, and that we should not expect a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old to be more responsible than the person that's manipulating a car down the roadway. So we have to understand that children are impulsive, that children, see a friend across the street, they might dart out in front of you. We need to do everything we can to prevent the accidents that are probably still potentially going to happen. So we just don't want it to be because of negligent driver and not paying attention to all of the mechanisms in place to keep our kids safe. The school bus stop arm and the flashing lights, again, it's very clear what that means. Stop and give the space to that bus and those kids.
Anything we're missing, Sheriff Marx? Anything you want to add to the conversation?
Just to reiterate in what we've already said, it's not only about, as Chief Thein just hit on, it's not only about the school buses out on the roads, pedestrians, and even as we get into summer, school activities are happening. Things are always happening. Give pedestrians the right of way. When you see a big yellow bus, you know what it's doing. It's got students on it. Let's not be that person that has to live with something terrible happening when it could so easily have been prevented.
And Trisha, anything we need to add, anything from your perspective that we're missing, and anything you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, the people just need to recognize when those reports come in that they are taken seriously by the Decorah Police Department, the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office, the Iowa State Patrol, and that we're all in this together, and that we will enforce the laws in place to help keep our kids safe. And let's not have our morning meeting start out that way, where we have to get to know one another under those circumstances.
All right, Decorah Police Chief Trisha Thein and the Winneshiek County Sheriff Dan Marx talking about the issue of passing stopped school buses, and the issue needs to go away.